yang dihormati Yang Bahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Shahrin Sahib, Vice Chancellor Universiti Teknologi Mara, Yang Bahagia Datuk Baizawi bin Cik Mat, Chief Executive Officer, ECARDC, Yang Bahagia Profesor Emeritus Tan Sri Dr. Anwar Ali, former Vice Chancellor of OUM and UKM, Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Ahmad Ismail, President Malaysian Academic Association Congress MAAC, Yang Bahagia Profesor Datin Dr. Suzana Sulaiman, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic and International, UiTM, Yang Berusaha Profesor Town Planner Dr. Jamalun Laili Abdullah, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Industry, Community and Alumni Network, UiTM, Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Mazidah Putih, exercising the functions of Director of UiTM, Cawangan Terengganu, and all the respected head of academic departments and all participants. I feel I am a little bit misplaced here. I'm the only one is not falls under the academia line at the moment. But I believe this is a very important session, if you like. It's not, I don't consider it as a lecture or talk, but more on the sharing session between myself and all my colleagues, all the professors and head of department today. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for the invitation. Terima kasih di atas jemputan untuk menghadiri, to attend this program today. And I keep wondering why I was invited. Because I think possibly the organizers was mixed up between myself, the former head of department from one institution somewhere, and myself now. Probably if you want to click to the next slide. Yeah, the next one. No, previous one. Yeah, that was the head of department that I'm talking about. So probably you invited this individual to attend your program today to give you lectures. But he wasn't the head of department now, and I'm a different person than him. So probably for those who are wondering, that was me. Many years ago when I was the head of department and appearing in Asturawani and whatever things you are mentioned just now. So I would consider myself as a new person in front of you today, just to give my insight of a very important topics for your conference, head of department conference. Can you move on to the next slide? So before we proceed any further, one couldn't stop to remind ourselves on the job and responsibilities of an academic staff, which is your original position and roles when you started your venture in the university. Each one of us here, when we received the first offer letter to join the university, you started yourself as an academic staff, whether as a tutor or as a lecturer. And along the line, you climb the role to a more challenging part in this venture. As a new lecturer, senior lecturers, senior lecturer, associate professor, and so on and so forth. And together with that, you climb other line of work apart from your original function as a lecturer. And of course, if you look at the whole things, whether your role as a head of department or your role as a lecturer, at the backdrop and the challenges of things, on things which is their role, of each individual present here in terms of your sasaran kerja tahunan, your SKT, as a lecturer that you need to fulfill, even though you are still deans or head of department or whatever, you need to fulfill your basic and fundamental responsibility and role in your SKT, sasaran kerja tahunan. And with the problem that we are having now, I believe it was my problem during my days in the university, teaching in the university, with the perpetual changing of goalposts. I think same lecturer, they will say the same thing about changing of goalposts for your SKT. Last 5 years, possibly you need to write or produce or publish journal publication in the certain referee journals and with a certain numbers. After a couple of years, when you prepare yourself for the associate professor or professor, and suddenly the goalposts change from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't know whether you still have the same challenge now as compared to in the past 20 years, but I believe it's still the same. Is it? Still the same. And bear in mind, throughout the journey as a lecturer or head of department, whether in the past of 20 years ago or now, you still need to endure the different environment in each institution, in each faculties, department. Different university, they have different cultures of dealing things. Even with the same umbrella under UiTM, for example, you possibly have, let's take one specific example of engineering faculty. Engineering faculty in Bukit Besi, possibly you have a slightly different culture than engineering faculty in UiTM Shah Alam and the rest of the countries. And same goes with other fields of studies. So what I meant to say is that the culture and the backdrop of the issues of 20 years ago or 15 years ago possibly it's not the same as we are in today, or possibly same, I don't know. So what I'm trying to explain today will be based on the backdrop of 15 and 20 years ago. However, the whole equations, whether things in the past of 20 years ago, the old style, I call it the old style setting, and the current setting, finally, when we come to the equation, it will still be the same. Because in the past, you don't have the availability of tools to assist you in your work. You don't have artificial intelligence tools. You don't have any specialist apps to assist you in your role as a lecturer or head of department in the past. But you have it now with a different challenge and problem you need to solve. So at the end of the day, even though the backdrop in the past of 20 years ago was different, now you have everything is nitty-gritty with all this AI, all this with MedSource and so on. And things, probably solving things getting much easier compared to 20 years ago. But you have a different set of students as compared to 20 years ago. So at the end of the day, the whole equation, you still have the equilibrium of equations, things in the past and things which is now. So I would like to summarize your role, because it's not my role anymore, your role as a lecturer and head of department in the university in terms of some equations. Of course, it is unverified and uncontested equation. I believe there will be some mathematicians from mathematics department here, but yeah, I mean, can we move to the next slide? So this is my equation. It's not somebody else. It's not Laplace transform or Lagrange equations, not Bernoulli equations. It's my equations. I made it specially for you. Can I have a glass of water, please? Can I have a glass of water? So I would like to summarize the function of sigma on the left, t equals to, from 0 until infinity, that represent from our birth until the end of our life. T equals to 0 from, the summations of sigma, L represent our life. Debor saya debor lagi. Okay. Bismillah. Okay. You have your life, L, from birth until end of your life. T equal to 0, from 0 until infinity. And you have various variables in that equation of F. F is not force. For those engineering lecturers, they know F always represents force. It's not force, but it's a function, a big function of IB plus KH plus AM. And AM, you have parenthesis of W with a red color and ETC, etc. Our life is a function of ibadah, IB, the ibadah. It's a function of KH means your responsibility as khilafah. Okay, this put it aside. Ibadah and khilafah, your responsibility. And amanah, AM, and with that you have W and etc. W particularly for your work. It's your responsibility. So you can, as I say, this is unverified and uncontested by anybody. If you look at the whole thing of your responsibility between ibadah, khilafah, and amanah you have W plus etc. Etc. means anything under the sun. Your responsibility as head of department or lecturers or in the university will be represented by that W. But not that W. That is capital letters W. So we can move on to the next slide. Okay. This looks like slightly more complicated. I have reason to do this. You have a big W, means your work is a function of work from birth until your end of your life. And I believe throughout your life storyline, from birth until your end of on your final day, possibly some of you, they work in the university from day one until end of your last breath. But it's a combination of work. You work here and there, you are jobless and things like that. So that's the big function of W. So for your work as a lecturer or head of department or deans or whatever in the university, you have a function of small letters W. And this is yours. This is yours. The other one is for everybody. The other equations. That's why I put T1 to T2. From a specific time frame 1 to T2. From you start your life in the university, let's say at the age of 30, until retirement age of 60. So that's represent your T1 or T2. And some of those in the university, possibly they just work for 5 years or 10 years. So their time started at at whatever 30 years until you reach 35. So it's a function of LC, which is your function of responsibility as a lecturer in terms of lecturing, teaching, guiding, okay? Your basic work, which is not 100% of your responsibility as a lecturer or head of department, plus with your MGT. I will dwell further on that MGT. And plus with RPs. RPs are research and professional services. Okay? Plus with your CS, your consultations. And PSV, your public services. So it's a function of time. That's why I put DT there. So you can see the whole spectrum of that integral represent your responsibility as a lecturer, but at the same time, your job spec requires for you to do teaching, lecturing, MGT, your research, your professional services, and your consultation, public service, and so on and so forth. That's more or less about the whole work or your responsibility as a teaching staff in the university. Not all of us or your colleague somewhere, lecturer, they have that MGT. So the topics for today's presentations is related to head of department, and that's where your MGT play their role. I will explain that. And the integral part on the right-hand side represent also your work, but your other work. Possibly you get involved with some online business or some whatever. So from T0 until you can calculate from our birth until your end of your life. It's a function of dx and dt. So I will focus now on that MGT. So general conclusion of the head of department role. When we come to the topics of today's sharing session, can be concluded in that MGT. So if you put that equation into that big equation earlier on in the previous slide, you can see you have lots of responsibility and role when you get involved with the academia in the university. And HOD or head of faculty, head of institution falls under that MGT, which means they are a very important function in any academic units in shaping the academic directions and culture of the department, fostering a collaborative and productive environment for faculty, staff, and students, and now become more important to the parents, guardians, and sponsors as compared to in the past 20, 25 years, I believe. 20 years ago, possibly the parents send their children to university just like that. I mean, get on the bus and just you handle yourself in the university. But now the parents go to university, they talk to the faculty, they talk to the lecturers, they want to follow everything. So that becomes another challenging part as a head of department. So the function of that MGT, management, which is your role today, when you go back to your institutions, I would summarize as a couple of responsibilities. We haven't started on the sustainability yet. We just I want to get the overview of everything first when we zoom in bit by bit. So we move to the next slide. So what is MGT? Number one, next slide, administrative leadership. So head of department oversees the administrative operations of the department, including budget management, resource allocation, and staff supervision. They often work closely with university administration to ensure the department's needs are met. University would work close in parallel with the ministry. Those who are at the higher level, the TNCs and VCs, they have to deal with higher up. I read a report that your VC need to deal when he first appointed. I think the first month or 1 or 2 months, he need to deal with the member of parliament in the one of the select committee, in PAC, and it's quite aggressive question to your VC. And each one of us, they have their administrative role and leadership need to play. So number one for your MGT is your management portion is administrative leadership as a head of department. So you need to make sure when you become head of department, you are playing that administrative leadership to your colleague. Number two, academic leadership within the department, which is to setting goals and priorities of research, teaching, and service. Can we move? Okay. So they may also responsible for curriculum development, program assessment, and academic policy implementation. This is a very basic responsibility of the head of a department. Number three, your management responsibility. Can move on to the next slide. The faculty support and development. The head of department supports the professional development of faculty members, including mentoring junior faculty, facilitating research opportunities, and promoting teaching excellence. They may also be involved in faculty recruitment, evaluation, and promotion processes. Bear in mind, when I say faculty support, don't get confused with those who graduated from American university. Faculty means lecturers, academic staff. It's not the faculty per se as we are in practice in here. So you need to play that role as a head of department. Number four, student support, next slide, and engagement to overseeing the student affairs within the department, including advising, mentoring, and addressing student concerns. They may also collaborate with other departments to enhance student learning experience and promote student success. I've said this to my colleague, well, my friend in the university. One of the trends, which is it's not healthy for our students now, this, if we compare students nowadays compared to the, not 25 years ago or 20 years ago, but 5 years ago, the resilience of the students, they are getting diminished. And this is something that we need to look at it carefully and seriously. Otherwise, when they enter job market, they keep on hopping to one job to another job because they couldn't make themselves more resilient to the bosses and things like that. So you need to have a good student support and engagement as a head of department. Number five, I'll go quite quickly. External relations. This is all you know, that head of department often represent the departments to external stakeholders, including industry partners, alumni, and professional organizations. You need to cultivate the relationship to support fundraising efforts, collaborative research project, and internship opportunities for students. And number six, strategic planning. Participate in strategic planning processes for the departments and contribute to broader university initiatives. So this may involve identifying opportunities for growth, addressing challenges, and ensuring alignment with institutional goals and priorities. Number seven, promotion of diversity and inclusion. I'll go quickly for the number eight, compliance and accreditations. So this is all more or less the responsibility as a head of department, with the some allowance of head of department. I'm not sure now. Allowance Panadol. How much is it now? All right, I still remember during my time it's about 700 ringgit. Same, sama. Sama. Okay. So this is your 700 ringgit allowance. You might say this, why 700 is not worth it for the whole thing that you need to do, especially the compliance and accreditations, and includes in the compliance your curriculum review that you need to look at every now and then, every 5 years or 6 years, every cycle of the academic program. So you can see the burden to yourself as a head of department. Meaning to say, when you are exercising your responsibility or your role as a head of a department, you cannot work alone. You need to work with other head of department and other faculty members and other department members. And this is where sometimes become the problem with the office politics. You know, there are people in our department who are really want to focus on their research and publications and presenting papers. Somewhere they don't want to get involved with this, some administrative issues. And, but you don't want to get involved with administrative issues. You want to focus with the research, publication, because that's mostly when it comes to promotions, Professor Madia and professors. But someone needs to do this job. So that's why I think it's very importantly for any of the department, they need to get support, assistance from your department members. How you will be able to achieve that? I mean, you know best your colleague in your department. Okay, now we come to the topics of the sharing sessions. I would focus a little bit on the values and sustainability, which is in the next slide. So when we say sustainability, I think more or less you are very familiar with this. We always want to look at sustainability in this spectrum. So you have environment, life, earth, and whatnot, everything in there, the people, the profit, the planet. You have the green, recycle things. This is what we always meant, the sustainability. But when we come to the department, there will be possibly something else. So now I would dwell on the issue of values and sustainability. So I do really hope that we will not get ourselves confused with the Sustainable Development Goal, or SDG or ESG, which is the environment, social and governance, for a company or any other entity than for academic institution. Bear in mind, each one of us in here, we are in the academic institution, not a company. So we are comparing apple with apple. We cannot compare apple with durian. The objective for the sustainability for the company might be not the same as university or department. That's what I meant by you cannot compare with apple with durian. Their goals and objective of that entity compared to your institutions, function and dynamic responsibilities are different altogether. So if you briefly look at the Sustainable Development Goal, briefly, which is the United Nations, this is on the bigger scale, not your department yet. The United Nations 2030 agendas for sustainable development include a set of 17 sustainable development goals, aiming to create a sustainable future for all. It calls for cooperation from governments and private sectors, civil society, and individuals to work together and do our parts to build a better world. For the state of Terengganu, I just want to tell you a little bit. In our own capacity, and similarly, I believe UiTM in Dungun or UiTM itself, you are trying yourself as hard as possible to get involved with the SDG things and EDG to contribute to the United Nations 2030 agenda by participating in the call to action to address the 5 critical areas of importance identified, which are people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. However, in terms of SDG and ESG, I think I explained it somewhere before. As an academic staff, as a lecturer, I believe we cannot just accept whatever mingling around on the SDG and ESG. So I give my take on the SDG and ESG in general. Number one, the problem with we have some practical issues with SDG and ESG, and I only explain in this forum for you. It's not outside, because people get confused otherwise. Number one, the problem with SDG and ESG, lack of universal adoptions. Although the SDGs were adopted by United Nations, not all countries have fully embraced or integrated them into their national policies and strategies. I mean, those who are living in Africa, they have different priorities in life compared to those who are living in the West. Not Africa, in Malaysia, we have different priorities, different goals, different set of standards, different issues altogether compared to our clique in Europe or in Japan. Number two, limited resources and funding. When you talk about SDG and ESG in particular, and you want to implement it in the universities, as per SDG and ESG, surely it will take some portion of your budget cake in the university. So we have issues with the limited resources and funding because it requires substantial financial resources for successful implementation. So the first question you need to ask, how many percent of your budget need to be allocated to those SDG and ESG to make it worth it of the effort? Would that become your priorities at the moment? Which one is your priorities in the department? Probably different faculty or different UiTM campus, they have different priorities. So you need to balance that. And who should take the responsibility to balance all those things? You yourself, you are the one who decide how far you want to go for that SDG and ESG. Number three, the problem with the SDG and ESG, because of the inequality and disparities. SDG aims to leave no one behind, but inequalities and disparities persist across different regions and populations. Number four, issues with SDG and ESG is complex independencies. Number five, data availability and monitoring. Who want to monitor? So that's the reason I explained about the problem and some critical issues with SDG and ESG is just for us to look at things from different perspective than other people. You are in the academic institution. Our role when we supervise our student at the master's or PhD level, we always emphasize on the critical thinking and analysis. So part of the responsibility now is to critically analyze what's the problem with SDG and ESG and how do we go about to solve or to overcome, to circumvent the problem with the SDG and ESG. So that's why I want to focus on sustainability leaderships as a head of department. Can we move on to the next slide? Okay. So the key values for sustainability leaderships, number one, integrity. So you need to act with honesty and fairness, ensuring transparency in decision-making processes and holding oneself accountable for the outcomes. And I say, as I said before this, the role of responsibility, those who take the allowance, probably one person only. But as a group of people in the department, you need to convince your colleague to work together with you, so you can, everybody will play their role to fulfill the needs for integrity. Number two, the values and sustainability as a head department, respect for people and nature, valuing the contributions of all staffs and students, promoting inclusivity and recognizing the importance of environmental stewardship. Number three, innovations and excellence, encouraging creative problem solving and striving for higher standards in teaching, research, and operational practices. And sometimes it's not the role of a head of department alone. This is, you need to work out together with the deans, your TNCA, who will guide you with lots of tools and ways. I'm not sure in UiTM, but when I was in the university before, we come across with those outcome-based learning, outcome-based education. And for those in the engineering faculty, you have a different set of responsibility to fulfill the Washington Accord, for example. So different faculties, they have different priorities and different perspectives they need to fulfill. So head or department need to look at from that perspective. Number three, the innovation and excellence, encouraging creative problem solving and striving, I think I explained before. Number four, collaboration, fostering teamwork and partnership within and outside the institution to enhance sustainable practices. We are living in a complex world, but borderless. It's very complex, but borderless. So think in the past, probably in the 20 years ago, the collaboration issues probably is not the same as the collaboration issues as we are now in today's world. So you need to extend it further and do your outreach as far as possible. And number five, responsibility. The key values for sustainability leadership and responsibility, to acknowledge the department's impact on society and the environment and taking proactive steps to minimize negative consequences. And this is one of the roles that you need to get involved with the public. I mean, those who are in the biotechnology or agriculture department or faculty probably is quite straightforward for the or in the business schools, quite straightforward for them to get involved with the community as part of the responsibility for sustainability. But for those who are in pure science, for example, or mathematical department, probably slightly, yeah, still can work with the Jabatan Pendidikan, for example, to assist our next generation of students. So what are those strategies to embedding sustainability in leaderships? Can we move on to the next slide? The strategies. This is the last bit of my sharing session. Number one is the curriculum development. To integrate sustainability topics across all courses and programs. So you have, well, it goes back to the lecturers. I mean, probably when let's say we don't have that kind of curriculum review, we are still using the old curriculum, but inside the topic of 14 weeks of teaching process, you can include things that related to the sustainability inside your teaching process along the way. Number two, research and scholarship. Encourage research project focus on sustainability challenges. And the next one, the slide, yeah. Secure funding for sustainability-related research and disseminate findings to a broader audience. yeah, you need to disseminate your findings to broader audience, not just looks very rosy and beauty on a piece of paper of journal publication, reference journal, or you can go up to, let's say, the Science Journal or Nature with a higher citation index. But at the end of the day, the public knows nothing about it, and they cannot appreciate anything on your publication. So you need to do more outreach to the general population, to the broader audience. Number 3, the operational practices. Implement energy efficient practices in departmental facilities, promote waste reduction, recycling, and sustainable procurement. Okay, this is quite easy for you to do, to implement energy efficient practices in department facilities, and you can monitor. I mean, if you want to implement this kind of things, for example, you need to monitor the progress. What are the savings you have on the first month and the second month, and compare, and you can be. This is your achievement for your sustainability practices. Number 4, community engagement. Collaborate with local communities and organizations on sustainability initiatives. Encourage staff and students to participate in community service related to sustainability. Number 5, professional development. Provide training for staff and faculty on sustainable practices and leaderships. Foster a culture of continuous learning about new sustainability trends and practices. So this is one of the strategies, those 5 strategies for you to implement the sustainability as head of department. And I said for this, I want to say to emphasize that this is not just the role of head of department. It's a role for everybody, and you need to inculcate the same understanding, the same principles to your colleague in the department. And probably this is one of the challenging parts. You call your colleague to discuss about this kind of thing. They say, "Oh, will this be calculated in your promotion exercise? Will that be what are the points that I will get from the when I apply my professors or my promotion?" So this is the challenging part. You need to explain. Probably university itself need to come up with the proper guideline how to deal with this new thing, so that it will be calculated in your promotion exercise. So as a conclusion, sustainability leadership in an academic setting is about embedding values that promote long-term well-being for both people and the planet. An academic HOD can champion this by fostering a culture of integrity, respect, innovation, collaborations, and responsibility, and by implementing strategies that integrate sustainability into every aspect of the department's operations. Through clear goals, practical actions, and engaging the entire department, any head of department can make significant strides towards creating a more sustainable academic environment. Sustainable leadership requires a vision and the commitment of top leadership in embedding sustainability within the organization cultures. Leaders must not only endorse sustainable practices, but also embody them in their actions and decisions. So committed leaders, as per head of department or deans or the vice chancellors, need to allocate necessary resources, including time, money, and personnel to sustainability initiatives. I'm not sure how many % of those sharing sessions you can grasp, but very importantly, this falls back to you. And you are the one who are going to prioritize next step of actions. You go back and discuss among your colleagues and try to prioritize and take it as a new challenge if you want to bring your institution to the next level of sustainability. I think that's wrap up my short sharing session with you today, and I believe it gives some sense it makes some sense, I hope. Don't make it nonsense, my presentation today. So I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.